Today I fucked up by beating my wife and daughter. Obligatory. This happened about 18 years ago and, please, read the whole thing before passing judgment. Smile? First, though, a little backstory. My oldest child, my only daughter, was born in 1998. She's healthy, smart, witty, today I fucked up, and all the things a proud dad could hope for. At the time of this story, though, she was only about 3 years old. My second child, however, was not so lucky with the health issues. At 5 weeks old, he had a near-miss incident that left him with massive brain damage and a host of other issues that stemmed from that. At the point of this story, he was in the state's early intervention program, which meant that we as a family got extra assistance with a few things. My daughter got preferential treatment to get into early education programs and a few things like that. For the events of this story, he was, as I recall, with my parents this day, but that's how we came to be at the particular event where this today I fucked up occurred. These events happened sometime in early 2002. The early intervention program was having a dinner/event for family members, and so my wife, daughter and I were all going to this event. Due to life being life, my wife and daughter were heading to the event from home and I was heading directly there from work, meeting up with them there. So, here we are, at an early intervention event sponsored by a state aid program, and the wife and I are chatting with director of this program, who is essentially a state-empowered agent to look after the welfare of special needs children and their families. We'll call her Jen for the sake of this story, which is definitely not her real name. My wife and I both like this state agent and were enjoying a conversation with her, and my daughter was making the most of the event that did have other kids but was mostly for adults. The conversation turned, however, when Jen asks my daughter what's on her mind. I swear, to my dying day I will never forget exactly how my daughter replied to her, "Mommy doesn't like it when Daddy beats us." I hope understandably, speechless. I looked to my wife and she also had no clue where the hell that came from. We looked to Jen, who was looking back and forth between us, because she'd been working with us for a while and didn't think me capable of beating either of them. We turned back to my daughter to try to figure out what she was talking about. It seems that since we arrived at the event separately, one of us had to get there first, and that day it was me. When my wife arrived, she noticed my car already in the parking lot. Since we had joked about racing there, she said something to my daughter to the effect of, "Oh, darn, Daddy beat us." As in, I beat them to the event. I arrived first. But my daughter took the phrase "I beat them" to heart, and was happy to share it with Jen when she asked how my daughter was. Once we figured that out, we shared a relieved if somewhat awkward laugh. The rest of the event came and went uneventfully. Honestly, I don't remember much of it after that, as I was still recovering from the OMFG shock at what my daughter had said before we figured it out. Considering that my daughter said that to a state employee, I'm very glad she knew us well enough to take the time to figure out what happened with us. But, yeah. I do still enjoy reminding my daughter every once in a while of how she did me wrong that day, but she usually rolls her eyes at me when I do. Too long didn't read. My daughter told a state employee that I beat her and my wife to an event in a way that could have been easily misunderstood. One of my daughter's kindergarten journal prompts was "Write something special you do with one parent." She put, "Doing lines with Daddy." Drawing. She meant drawing. It's the emphasis that really made it. Oh my, I just remembered I have another example of this. My friend was on the bus one day with her little boy. He was probably between 3 and 4 at this point, suddenly blurted out, "Mummy was in bed with a soldier last night and now she's got a sore bum." Needless to say, my friend was mortified and more than a little confused. Later she remembered that her son had left some of those small plastic army toys in her bed and she had slept on top of one the night before. Pretty sure I laughed about that for like 6 months. Well, I have a story for you. I have had 2 similar occasions, so I know where you are coming from. Both at nursery. My mummy hurts me when the teacher asked how. She replied, "When she brushes my hair and it has got tangled." I play hide the sausage with Daddy. This turned out to be when she hides the chorizo sausage under the pasta at tea time. My nephew used to say he was being hurt whenever he had to do something he didn't want. Told to take a bath. No. You're hurting me. Getting him dressed. No. You're hurting me. Eat your vegetables. No. You're hurting me. I witnessed all those and many more. Most of the situations were someone telling him to do something without touching him, and getting him dressed and such. No one was being rough or anything, he just equated "I don't want to" with "you're hurting me." Kids say the darndest things. Beat me to it. When my son was mad at me when he was a toddler, he would scream out, help me from this man. Which of course made me run away with him. So people would stare knives at me as I ran away with a struggling child. Putting it in that perspective, I'm very glad my daughter was just standing there with us, and not showing any sign of fear or whatnot around me. I think you had it worse than I did. Today I fucked up by asking an unmarried couple how they had the same last name. Today I fucked up. With the obligatory "this happened a few years ago, but I still experience the gut-wrenching feeling of sticking my foot in my mouth every time I think of it. So I used to be a wedding photographer, and sometimes people get married at the courthouse then have a friends and family reception at a later date. So they are technically married when I first meet them. One day, I'm having a consultation, they bring a child, maybe 8 years old, and we put him in front of the office TV while we talk. Again, not uncommon for courthouse marriage couples to already have kids together. The meeting goes well and they write me a deposit check. The check has both their names on it and the last names are the same. My brain does maths and I figure, joint checking account plus same last name plus kid in tow equals they are already married, so I say, you two are prepared, you already have new checks printed with the same last name. To which the bride-to-be replies, I'm kinda still married to his brother. And she ended that story with, most of his family doesn't approve. I was mortified and tongue-tied, not knowing what to say next as we continued to plan a wedding between this little boy's mom and his new uncle dad as he watched cartoons in front of my TV. Too long didn't read, asked couple if they were married as they hired me to be their wedding photographer, and the answer was no. She had the same last name because she was still married to his brother. Edited to fix a typo. How this reminds me of the time we were getting family photos done and the photographer said to my brother, come on, let me see both hands, you aren't the one-handed man, and had no idea why. We all started laughing until my actual amputee one-handed brother took his stump out of his pocket. This is great. I hope your brother handled it well. I'd hardly consider this a fuck up. Stop grabbing her ass in public then. Completely unrelated, but this fuck up reminds me of the time I was making small talk as a cashier and someone paid their $100 order all in $1s. I said, you must be a waitress, haha, and the lady said yeah, something like that. I think I was 16 then, but I never ever made small talk about $1s again. We could always tell the strippers when they came into the coffee shop because the ATM at the strip club pays out in twos. I had a friend in HS that had this situation. Mom had her and her brother with her dad, then wound up with his brother. They married and had 2 more kids. So her younger siblings were also her cousins. Very strange situation. This all came out when we had to do a family tree in Spanish class. If I recall correctly, she also wound up having a kid with her stepbrother too. The family tree stayed confusing. Could have been worse. She could have been his sister. The what I was expecting. Today I fucked up. NSFW, I came across an inconspicuous sub involving accidental sex stories. While scrolling past the front page of Reddit, I saw a sub labeled by an acronym. The acronym suggested something along the lines of a mistake you made that day. It seemed like a popular sub as it was on the front page 3 times within the first 6 subs. Literally every other front page post for me on this Reddit was this sub. First post by a user finding something in a girl's vagina by performing oral sex on her. The second post, surprisingly, also another story about a man finding a foreign object in a girl's vagina by going down on her. The third post, this time by a female apparently having sex with her boyfriend in an airplane bathroom who occupied the facilities so long that when she stepped out a stranger rushed in and shat diarrhea all over her poor boyfriend. Was this indeed a sub about daily mistakes? No. I soon realized my mistake as I read more of the posts. The name of the sub was a cover for what the sub was really about. Amateur erotica fiction writers weaving the most absurd situation they could come up with involving the author happenstancing into sex. It was so obvious. Sex by accident, something gross or disgusting, and always being discovered right at the moment of climax. I had been fooled thinking it would be a sub about awkward social situations, costly mistakes, leaving your social media open for your S.O. or sibling to find. Alas, it was a creative writing sub, every post thinking of hilarious synonyms for doing the deed or genitalia, sentences ending with a mirite. Mother after mother bursting in on money shots and lost treasure to be found in cervixes. Was I the only one who noticed the sub was a front for erotic fiction? Surely other people realized what they actually came across. Then I read the comments. They knew all right. Members of the sub leaving comment after comment with puns, jokes, accolades and showering the posters with gold for their golden showers. Applauding the wildest, most far-fetched stories with tens of thousands of upvotes. A man tells a tale of accidentally receiving fellatio from his relative. With his ability to add the taboo of incest, the upvotes soared into infinity. No, this pub was not for me. The story's too wild, too stomach-churning, too unbelievable, and unbearably desperate to please the audience. Right when I was going to click unsub though, my transgender step-brother came into the room and caught me reading the subreddit. The big bold titles proudly displaying the NSFW tag. I tried to stand up but my belt caught on the desk, pulling my pants down, revealing my soldier at full attention. I quickly sat back down in disbelief, but he wasted no time laying his tight little backdoor right onto my erect Johnson. In the excitement I didn't realize I had a hot mic connected right to the family entertainment center via Bluetooth, and just when I was going to blast his boy Varg into outer space, our mother burst in. He hopped off right away as soon as she opened the door, but it left nothing but air standing between her and a pearl necklace. Looks like we're going to have a really awkward family dinner tonight, frown. Too long didn't read. I unsubbed from an erotic fiction sub, because the mods don't have a dedicated erotic story day like they used to. If it wasn't already taken, I'd suggest renaming this sub r/TIFU. I can't remember the last time I saw satire this well written on Reddit. You clearly put a lot of time into this. Well done. This story seems made up. Op didn't even link to the real sub. Fuck this, I'm unsubbing. I feel a lot of them are the same person. You can tell by the colorful euphemisms they use, which no one uses in actual conversation. So there I was burping the one-eyed meat serpent when my stepsister burst in. They all read like a bad Vargas impression. Nah. The best way to get your creative writing exercise upvoted here is to include as many of those cringy humorous euphemisms as possible, so everyone does it. The teenagers who are now this sub's core demographics lap that shit right up. So there I was, angle grinding my spice weasel when. OMG, I love your writing style. Comma, romantic face. Op, how was family dinner? We need an update. Op needs more gold before he writes the next part.